Today what we're doing is the lower control arm bushings on a 1999 K2500 Suburban. This one has the forged lower control arms, which makes it the same as the 1-ton 3500 truck of the same years. Now this is an older square bodied one, a GMT 400 body style. So it'll be, I think the truck stopped in, oh man, 1998 maybe for the 1-tons. I'm not real sure on that, but it's in the 90s when these trucks were built, not the newer body styles. But you can see we're going to replace that bushing in there, which is a solid rubber bushing. And then the bushing back there behind, I don't know if you can see it, but it's behind where the torsion bar comes into the control line. So we're going to drop this off. We'll end up putting new shocks on it, as well as new tie rod ends. I don't know if the tie rod ends are bad, but I figured let's just go ahead and swap them out while we have it apart. So that's what we're doing. Get your wheels off. If you don't know how to get your wheels off, I'm not going to make a video on how to do that because you shouldn't be doing the rest of it. Here are the part numbers for the upper control arm bushings and the lower control arm bushings. That's the ACD number, AC Delco number. I used AC Delco. You can probably use other brands. I couldn't find a Moog rear, I think it was the rear control arm bushing. Maybe it was the front one. Anyway, one of the ones was not available from Moog, so I ended up going with AC Delco on both of them. First thing I did was take my bushings, my new ones, out of the boxes and put them in the fridge. This is an old fridge in my garage. I don't know if you can get away with this in your fridge in your house or not, but mine's in the fridge in the garage. They've been in there for a few hours. I'll probably be another few more hours before I get them out. I don't know if you need to do this, but I'm doing it, so we'll see if it helps. Okay, I'm going to start disassembling this side. This thing's riddled with metric and standard fittings. So up here for the tie rod end, we've got a 18 millimeter, got an 18 on the back of the shock, and then we've got a 5/8 for the anti-sway bar link right there. We're going to take those off, and then we're going to take off the bottom spindle nut, ball joint nut, and then we'll show you how to separate the ball joint from the spindle itself. We've already replaced them, so we're not going to be changing them out in this video, but I'll show you how to get it loose. So here we go. And again, you're going to have to take off the anti-sway link, the tie rod end, and the shock to get that lower control arm free. And I'm going to replace the shocks while I've got this loose. And I'm replacing these tie rod ends as well. So I'm going to tear them up pretty good. I'm not going to be too worried about taking them out to reuse them. Ordinarily, you probably wouldn't want to do that because it'd mess up the threads. But again, I'm not worried about that today. Not on this one. And I'm just doing a quick check to see if I've got any sticky ball joints. So far, that thing turns smooth as can be. And again, the ball joints were replaced probably 2 years ago. And that's just a bolt for the shock. This all should come apart pretty quick. Helps if you hold on to the right side. And you can see this sway bar link has also been replaced. It's relatively new. All right. And I gotta go grab one more wrench. All right, now back this down about to there. You don't want it all the way off. And then make sure you've got all your jack stands in place. All right, now we're gonna move the jack over to the lower control arm. Try to get the weight of the spindle pushing down on the, or get the weight of the spindle off of that ball joint. Alright, now we're going to give it a couple of whacks on the side. I may have to stick a pickle fork in there, we'll see. It would be better if we didn't have to do the pickle fork because it tears up that boot. And if you make sure your castle nut's protecting your threads, try driving up a little bit. That probably isn't going to work though because you're pounding against that spring tension. There we go. You see banging on the side, it just dropped free. There you go. And now the trick is going to be to jack this lower control arm up and get this spindle free of the ball joint itself, and then swing it out just a little bit, and then we're going to lower the lower control arm all the way down. Okay, somehow I've forgotten that I got to pull out this axle shaft in order to clear the spindle. So first thing you'll have to do is stick a big heavy bladed screwdriver all the way down in there, get in the vents. You're going to use it to pry against the caliper housing. It's a 36mm wrench, goes on the front. And it's going to take me 2 hands to get this loose. There we go. Okay, we had to remove the axle shaft, 6 bolts there, a large nut and washer there, and then you're able to move the axle down in this direction, push it that way, it'll slide out of the hub, and then you can walk it out towards the front. So now we're going to remove the lower control arm from the spindle. We jack it up as high as we can get it without lifting it off the jack stands. There we go. I have to give it a couple of more taps. There we go. And then you'll just kind of have to spring it against that upper control arm. Get it down far enough to come off. Here's the torsion bar keys. What we're going to do is loosen those up so that it takes some of the spring pressure off of these torsion bars that run forward to that lower controller. So what they tell you to do is count the number of threads. If you can see up in there, I don't think you can. Let me see. You can count the number of threads exposed on that. You want to match it when you put it back together. Match the left and the right as best as you can, and that'll keep the truck level. So that's what we're going to do. Notice there's a 10.9 stamped on the top. That means it's a metric. So you don't want to back them all the way out, or else it I guess you could. It's just going to rest on that catch there. But anyway, just back them out a little bit, take some of the pressure off of them. With the spindle now removed from lower control arm, got a piece of wood wedged up between the up travel stop and the upper control arm, hold the spindle out of the way. Now we're going to loosen up these lower control arm bolts. We do have most of the tension off of the torsion bar. That's one thing you want to be very aware of, that you get the tension out of that torsion bar. You can see that's the hexagonal shaped big heavy piece of iron coming out of there. Just make sure that is fully unloaded before you take any bolts out. You can loosen them, but just be clear of everything. Don't have your hands in a pinch point of any sort when you do this. And then once we get that lowered all the way, make sure we have all the tension off that torsion arm. We can slide it forward and it'll disengage. We can take this arm off. Here is the completely loosened lower control arm. You can see there's no tension on that torsion bar. You know, you can pull on it, it doesn't fight back. So you're good now to try to attempt to remove the torsion bar. All right, I just pulled that torsion bar through to the front. You can see the torsion key back there fell out as I did. So we've got to put that back in whenever we put this back together. So anyway, you can pull that out. Now we can pull the bolts out and drop this all down. Okay, here's the next hurdle. This bolt for the lower control arm hits the front axle flange. So, I'm not sure what we're going to do. Something came to mind is cut the head off of that bolt and then just put a new bolt in from the rear, which is probably how I'm going to end up solving this, because I don't want to take the whole transaxle out of the front. So anyway, we'll move on. That's how we fixed that bolt interference. We just cut the head off. We're going to drive it out towards the rear. Got some new 12.9. I think they're going to be a little short, so we might have to order new ones, but it's 12.9 grade M16 by 2 by 140 is what I needed. I've got 130, so we'll see if 130s work. All right, here's the press setup. Got the cutoff bolt used as an extension to a piece of all thread down to that bushing. We'll see if this works. I'm not super hopeful that it will, but we're going to try. And that's what we ended up with. Had a little bit of movement in the actual rubber portion, but I don't think it was pressing out the steel portion of the bushing. But anyway, that's as far as we got. Try something else. We've finished burning out the bushings. You can see it does a pretty good job removing those bushings. So we're going to clean those holes up and press the new bushings in. All right, we've got this heated up. Just heated that knuckle up a little bit. We've got the bushing out of the freezer. I'm going to spray it with some silicone lubricant. Hopefully this goes quick. Take a minute to adjust and then press it in the rest of the way. Okay, there it is. Pressed into position. We're going to release the tension. Make sure it pressed all the way in. Be kind of hard with one hand. Looks like we might need to press it without that plate in place. Sorry, I got in the zone and just started assembling stuff, so I kind of will gloss over some of this. But basically, you put the torsion arm back in the lower control arm while it's on the ground, and then you'll feed it up in there into the frame over that cross member, but not all the way back. So the front of the torsion bar will come to about here. Then you'll pick this thing up, and it just takes strength and tenacity to get it back in place. Get it back in place, put the bolts in, and then you got to orient your torsion bar back the way it was. You can't tell on mine, but the line kind of goes upwards and outboard. So anyway, you get that in place, then you'll go back to the back. You'll put the torsion key back on the end of the torsion bar, all right, back in place, and then slide the torsion bar back into it. And you may have to put a jack stand under this to get this in a position you can do it. And then you'll come up here, you'll jack the lower control arm up, you'll set it into the ear on the spindle. You'll put some bolts in everything, and then you'll slide this axle back in. You turn the wheel outboard like it is, so it's turning to the left in this case. This is the front driver's side. And you'll push the flange of the axle back in here. You'll be able to put the spline shaft through, secure it with a nut, and then you can put it in up to the transaxle flange. And then you'll go back and torque all this stuff down. I don't tighten these up until I've got the vehicle at the ride height, so that doesn't pinch that bushing and make it squeak. I don't know if it would or not, but that's how I've always done it. So anyway, that's where we are now. We're going to go ahead and put some torques on these, and we'll be pretty much done with this side. We'll have to, put the shock in the sway bar link, and then put our new tie rod end back in. All right, we'll catch up in a bit. Okay, we got everything back together, and I put it all up, snugged up these bolts underneath, and drove it around a little bit. Now I'm tightening them up. I was able to get that side lower control arm bolt out past the axle flange up there, but this one I had to cut the head off and then change to it's actually a 12.9 instead of 10.9 grade bolt, but it's socket head, which made it really difficult to find a giant Allen key that big. But anyway, we got it done. It went pretty smoothly over there. One quick tip on that one, I kind of bent the ears open a little bit to allow me to put that lower control arm in a little bit easier, and I did not take the torsion bar out. What I did was just pull it away and slid the control arm forward off the torsion bar, left it in place in the torsion key all the way back there in the back, so I didn't have to change any orientations of anything or anything like that. So anyway, we got it all done. Two solid rubber bushings and forged lower control arms on a 3/4 ton Suburban. Sorry if it wasn't as complete a video as I'd hoped. I got late for battling all the soccer moms in the carpool lane, so I had to snap it all together and get out of here. So anyway, I hope it was a help. If you have any questions, please comment.